Yo, it's Cade back in the building, man. Journeyman Sports Podcast. We back with it, bro. It's mock draft season. You already know what time it is. I know we had a little hiatus, just because trying to get better quality content for y'all, trying to get better equipment, trying to put ourselves in a better position to really take this where we want to go with it. But it's mock draft season, man. I've been seeing everybody put their own little spin on mock drafts, say what they think is going to happen. This is just going to be my mock draft 1.0. I'm a big mock draft fan. I'm sure we'll do multiple rounds and everything as things get later on in the process. But right now, I will say I have not hit on every single prospect that is supposed to go in the first round, especially edges and tackles. I'm not necessarily solid on. But outside of that, I have looked at a lot of tape. I have looked at a lot of these prospects from my own little point of view off camera, and I'm ready to get into it, man. So let's hop right into it with the first overall pick. Obviously, there's been a lot of speculation on what the Bears are gonna do. Are they gonna keep Justin Fields in the building? Are they gonna move on? Me personally, I do feel as though they should move on. Caleb Williams, we know that he's been the most hyped up prospect probably since Joe Burrow, to come out, maybe even more hyped up since Joe Burrow. Obviously they're going to have to pay Justin Fields. His rookie deal is now over, so you're going to be looking at paying him at least 20 plus for a guy like Justin Fields. And it hasn't really worked out that well since he's been there. Given the situation hasn't been good, he hasn't had good receivers, good offensive line, things like that. Has had a tough go of things, but I think they're kind of going to say, look, this is a guy that we believe can still have success elsewhere, and we'd rather just get compensation for him while we can rather than just let him walk or have to pay him. And then if they pay him and something ends up like the Daniel Jones situation, then they look dumb for not taking Caleb Williams in this first spot. So as much as I do think they could trade down and probably get more draft capital or things of that nature, I think, it makes more sense for them just to stick and pick, get their guy of the future, get 4 years of cheap quarterback play at the minimum. And that's Caleb Williams off the board at number one for me. So, with pick number 2, Washington, the Commanders, man, they're a very, very interesting situation. Because Sam Howell, honestly, when I looked at the whole Sam Howell situation, I was like, oh, well, this could work. This guy looks good. His college tape was good, and honestly didn't look very bad. Kind of going through the motions this season with this team. Obviously, the team wasn't very good, and then obviously when you trade away your 2-star pass rushers, that doesn't make your team any better. But on the offensive side of the ball, they have pass catchers. They have, there's a lot of struggles on O-line. They have running backs, things like that. Really here, if you're not confident in Sam Howell, then I think you take Drake May. Me personally, I'm willing to give Sam Howell another year, at least another look. Whether that means Drake May is sitting behind him, I have no idea. But I think just with a new head coach, new ownership, and it seems like they're trying to turn the tide there in Washington, I think they're going to want their franchise guy. And even if that means sitting behind Sam Howell for a year and kind of learning, then that's what that means. But we're going to go with Drake May, man. Obviously no huge surprises there. No shakeups. I'm sure I'll get into proposing trades and everything probably in later drafts. I'm going to try to keep everything as simple as possible for right now. But if you're the Patriots, honestly, the Patriots are a very, very hard team to pick for. Just because new coach and kind of this weird situation that this ownership is in now since Belichick left, you don't really know what the Patriots are going to want to do because really it's been Belichick's show there for so long at this point. He's been the coach and GM that you never really know. So now without really a perspective of what they've done in the past or anything like that, we're kind of left with like a Well, I wonder what they will do. And to me, it only makes sense, man. He's looking at being a generational guy, not just a guy that is kind of decent and whatever. No, man, he's looking at being a generational talent, and that is Marvin Harrison Jr. I'm gonna go ahead and take him. So the top three prospects go in the top three. It could happen. It could go a completely different way. But my reasoning behind this pick is you have Mac Jones, you have Bailey Zapp. You've seen both the guys play, and I agree it didn't look good, right? But they were also under Belichick. They were also under this whole entire old coaching system. And you can't expect a quarterback to play good if they don't have any weapons or if they don't have anything to look to in order to be successful in their system. So as much as I want to blame Mac Jones, as much as I want to blame all the other quarterbacks there in New England, we all know that the cupboards have been bare for a very, very long time over there. They gave a lot of money to Juju Smith-Schuster, Hunter Henry, guys that just haven't really panned out, veteran signings that aren't very great. I like the Kayshon Boutte pick in last year's draft. I've liked a couple of their picks here and there. I like Marte Mapu a lot. I like guys over there a lot. I just think you need that dog in the wide receiver room. You need an alpha wide receiver because look at what Mac had at Alabama, man. I mean, he had generational talent after generational talent coming through that door. He had good wide receivers. He had a good running game, something of which has been nothing compared to what the experience that he's had in New England, which has been off to just a very, very shaky start. So I am now going to move on to the Cardinals. The Cardinals, another weird spot. You know, I honestly thought this was going to be the worst team in the NFL this year. I didn't really see a world where there would be a team that was worse. They somehow managed to finish with the 4th overall pick. But this is also a team that showed a lot of dog, a lot of fight. And almost every single game that they played, especially when Dobbs was over there, and then when Kyler came back, they looked pretty good. So I think this team does have more than we thought, but it does not mean it's anywhere close to contending. They still need a multitude of different things over there in Arizona, for sure. So I think my next pick here is going to surprise some people because I know that they already have Marquise Hollywood Brown and Michael Wilson and guys like that. And you drafted Trey McBride, so I don't really see a need for a guy like Brock Bowers here. You could convince me into offensive tackle 100%, but they just took Paris Johnson last year. So taking tackles in back-to-back drafts this high, I just don't know how I feel about that. I say you go get your dog. You go get the guy that was an absolute baller this year behind the generational talent in Marvin Harrison Jr. The next best guy that you can get here is Malik Neighbors, in my opinion, and that's where I see him going. I mean, you look at Kyler. Kyler loves his explosive playmakers. That's why he requested for Marquise Hollywood Brown to come over to Arizona so that he would have a guy like that. And they have Rondale Moore, who is also like a little shifty, speedy playmaker guy, but they don't have that dog, that alpha. And I have not seen very many college receivers better than Malik Neighbors, especially in past drafts. It hasn't really been even close. So I really like Malik Neighbors. If you're not going to get Marvin Harrison Jr., he's a great constellation prize to have. I don't think they lose any sleep over that. And I think Arizona's happy, Kyler's happy, and it's a happy marriage over there. So the newly led John Harbaugh Los Angeles Chargers, man. For me, this is another team that is kind of in a weird situation because they do have a lot of talent. This is a very talented roster. It's a top heavy roster. You don't have as much depth down the board as some of the other teams. So they definitely are a little bit top heavy. They definitely have a lot of older veteran guys, but not necessarily bad things. I think that defense needs to continue to get better. Obviously, that offense needs to start actually putting up numbers now that Jim or John Harbaugh, y'all know the one I'm talking about. I get them mixed up a lot, but the new head coach of the Chargers, with him being there, it's going to be a complete revamp of that offense. Obviously, they're not going to touch Justin Herbert, guys like that. But, they do have to start thinking about a Keenan Allen replacement, maybe more of a tight end over there. But they have solid tackles. I just think, it's a weird spot to be in, but I think if you want the most explosive offense that you can create in Los Angeles and you want to be a real competitive football team, you already have a pretty nice defense, especially when I think they're better coached. They'll be even better. You have Keenan Allen, you have Austin Eckler. Like, you have guys on offense that can really perform, but the new thing in the NFL is that versatile tight end that can do it all. We saw it with Dalton Kincaid last year. Obviously, just to name other guys that are like that in the NFL, you got Travis Kelce, David Njoku, guys like that. Even Chigakonko over in Tennessee, like guys like that are the new wave at tight end. And Brock Bowers can block. He can be a vertical threat. He can find space in zones. He can beat man coverage. He's just an all-around great tight end. And honestly, if he wasn't a tight end and maybe played a position with more value, he would probably be inside the top 3 just based off of his skill. But here, the Chargers are going to get him at 5. And honestly, I don't think anyone should feel too bad about that. I know the tackles are kind of falling and everyone's like, oh my God, it's Joe Alt. Oh my God, that's, but Joe Alt's a great prospect. And again, I could see those tackles being taken at either one of these 5 spots to start off. But right now, everyone wants their offensive weapons. Everyone wants to make their offense as explosive as possible. That's just the era of the NFL that we are in. And Brock Bowers helps you do that way more than a Joe Alt would or anything like that. So, the Giants, man. The Giants are probably my least favorite team to pick for this year, just because they're in such a weird spot. You have high draft picks that didn't pan out over there. You have guys that are disgruntled. You have guys that are, committed to stay there for a long time but making a bunch of money. You have the younger youth movement that's just come in. Like, it's all over the place in New York right now for the Giants. But I think you're tied into everyone has been. I've seen Jaden Daniels mocked here 1,000 times, but I just don't see that happening here. I guess you could draft him and waste a whole year of him sitting under another guy and whatever, but you paid Daniel Jones. Regardless of whether you like it now or not, regardless of whether you like the move that you made or not, you still paid Daniel Jones, which means your money is tied up, the contract is tied up with him, which means I'm not going to take a quarterback right now, even though this is a strong quarterback class. I'm probably expecting to be close to this spot again, or at least top 10 next year. With the way that you saw Daniel Jones and the rest of the defense and everything play, especially through the first stretch of the year. I think if you want to make Daniel Jones have any remote sort of chance, I know that offensive line is terrible. Evan Neal is played horribly this season. Really, a lot of that offensive line did. And I think really all you can do for Daniel Jones right now is you have Saquon, you have a couple of weapons. This is a pretty deep wide receiver class. Evan Neal didn't pan out. You have Andrew Thomas on the other side. Maybe you kick Evan Neal into guard or something like that to still make him, maybe be able to fight for his career. But I think you have to go tackle here, man. I think you have to go Joe Alt. Keep the guy that you paid upright long enough to do his job. As much as I want to hate on Daniel Jones, and I realize that he did play absolutely atrociously last year or this past season, I also do want to say that his situation wasn't good. His offensive line was made of paper mache, and you're not going to expect any quarterback to do well in that situation. I mean, even Aaron Rodgers, we saw it for the first 3 snaps that he played in the NFL this year. If you don't have an offensive line, there's nothing you can do. No matter how much they're paying you, no matter how elite you are, if you don't have an offensive line and there's constant pressure in your face and you're constantly on the ground, you're not going to do anything. That's a tale as old as time. I don't think that surprises anybody. All right. In Tennessee, man, it's a very, very interesting situation over there as well, because it's DeAndre Hopkins, it's Derrick Henry, who's probably on his way out, and then it's pretty much Will Levis in the defense after that. I mean, they don't have a lot on the offensive side of the ball at all. I know that they're trying to rebuild that offensive line pretty heavily over there, which is definitely a good idea. It's their top need, as you can see. I'm not gonna lie, I'm very, very tempted here to take Rome Odunze, but just because that'd be so fun, especially, they got Tajay Spears in the draft last year too, and that's one of those running backs that reminds me a lot of like an Aaron Jones or Alvin Kamara, a guy that can run between the tackles just as well as he can catch the ball and do crazy things out of the backfield. So it's a tempting pick, but all in all, you need offensive tackle. I mean, right now on that right side of the line, you have, I'm pretty sure, Nicholas Petit-Frere, and then on the left side is Skoronski. I think they're playing Skoronski at a tackle. If he's playing guard, then this makes even more sense. But I'm gonna go Fasanhu. I'm just gonna say Olu like everyone else does. I'm not gonna pronounce that first name or embarrass myself on here doing that. But that feels a really, really big need on that offensive line. It gives your young second-year quarterback next year is what Will Levis will be. But in his second year, he'll be more protected. He might actually be able to stay upright. Again, you have Tajay Spears in the backfield. You do have DeAndre Hopkins for at least one more season. And then you can address wide receiver further down the board. You don't necessarily have to, do it all with one pick. But I think everyone's pretty excited about that pick. You get a good run blocker. You get a massive you get a massive offensive tackle. I'm sorry, and they love to run the ball in Tennessee, or at least did under Vrabel. So Olu is a good pass blocker, but he's an even better run blocker in my opinion. And yeah, that's why that pick makes sense for me. All right, moving on down to Atlanta. Atlanta, man. So obviously right now Justin Fields is probably the most mocked player to go to Atlanta. Everyone is mocking Justin Fields to go to Atlanta because it just makes so much sense, and the whole Michael Vick comparison, and he's a young, exciting player with a bunch of other young, exciting players there in Atlanta. It would be a lot of fun to watch, with Drake London and Kyle Pitts and Jonnu Smith and, Tyler Algier and Bijan Robinson and, all the different weapons that you see used over there. But I think more of a need for them right now than that offense, since they have put so many investments on that side of the ball. And since they have seemingly committed to the offensive side of the ball, and they got Arthur out of there, and they, kind of have shaped it so they're moving forward in a more positive direction. That defensive side of the ball has needed help for a very, very long time. It's been Grady Jarrett, and then I guess last year they had Jesse Bates and AJ Terrell, but it's been those three against pretty much everyone, and I think it's only right that we add some help for Grady Jarrett there on the D-line and get him another edge to go across from him. So we add Dallas Turner, the best edge in the class, in my opinion. I like Leatu Latu a lot, but I just think Dallas Turner's more he's more bendy. He gets to the passer faster. He's more powerful in the way that he moves. If you watched a lot of Alabama games, you could see moments where he could take over the game. Also a pretty good run stopper. I think that's a nice fit in Atlanta's defense for sure. Alrighty, so moving on to the Bears' other pick. This is a spot where I see them trading down. And I'm going to do something a little weird here that a lot of people... the Bears are just a very, very hard spot to pick for a second time because it's like, you already got your guy. Do you just want to move down and take the picks, or do you want to add a second guy? But I guess it's too good to do to pass up on, man. We're gonna do Roma Dunze to Chicago. Dude, I love Roma Dunze a lot. Watching his tape has been a lot of fun for me. I've watched a lot of his highlight film too. Just a really exciting player. I think he can beat you in kind of the Puka Nacua situations where he needs to beat you up and kind of route run you and get open in tight little spaces. But he can also moss you and literally take you down with him. He can catch a ball on your head. Like, he's one of those receivers. The reason why I think Neighbors is just a little bit better is he's more of that deep threat. He's more of that go long. He's more of that super electric player, and that's more what fits Arizona. But I think Roma Dunze could go really, really well with DJ Moore and be a great number 2 with him. So, yeah, I like both of Chicago's picks here early. You get Caleb Williams to address the quarterback need after Justin Fields, and then you got another receiver to go across the guy you paid last year. So it's like that's a really good way to start the draft and immediately fill 2 needs. Now, even more interesting, Jaden Daniels is falling. I know, Jaden Daniels' draft stock has risen a ton, and I'm an LSU fan. I love Jaden Daniels. So it's not biased. It's not none of that. It's just, honestly, either the positions where I could see him going, they have a bigger need, or it's not as pressing, or the need isn't as pressing as the position that I picked for a lot of these teams. So that's why he's falling. But the Jets, man, obviously I think we've seen they need to fix that offensive line. And I'm not exactly confident that taking J.C. Latham does that for them right away. So maybe we look at a different... This is a very, very deep guard class and tackle class. Like, the offensive line class this year for this draft class is very, very deep. So I think, you could probably get offensive line value later. I think the position that they should be looking at here is either defensive tackle or receiver, just because if you looked at Aaron Rodgers, even when he was playing, it's like those first 3 plays, he didn't know who to throw to. Zach Wilson didn't know who to throw to other than Garrett Wilson. It's like they have one alpha receiver, and then after that, it's kind of not worked out. I mean, the Alan Lazard signing didn't work out. A lot of the other signings they made, like the Randall Cobb signing, didn't work out. Just a lot of weird signings that didn't work out. You need another receiver in that room, for sure. I'm not necessarily as high on Keon Coleman as I am on Johnny Newton, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab the Jets' Johnny Newton. Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot, man. I think putting him in the next to Quinnen Williams, yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. Putting him next to Quinnen Williams. Honestly, maybe you substitute that pick for J.C. Latham. That would be fine. that's probably one that I would go back and change if I really had to look at it. But that's one I'm iffy on. I do like it though because you add Johnny Newton on a defensive line with Quinnen Williams. You added him on a line with the Lawson brother that's there. John Franklin Myers, I think, is still there. Am I just making myself sound dumb right now? All right, sorry about that, y'all. I had to figure that out. But anyway, yes, I had to go back and kind of make sure I was talking about the right people real quick. But yes, John Franklin Myers. I think putting Johnny Newton in between John Franklin Myers, Will McDonald III. You have Quinnen Williams that he's going to get to go next to. He's already a great power rusher at defensive tackle. Can get to the passer and stop the run both. And I think the Jets have already shown that they're a defensive minded team. I think that this kind of fits them. That kind of fits Joe Douglas's drafting style. They love to draft defense, especially defensive line. So yeah, I think Johnny Newton, even though it's a little bit of a weird pick, and they could have easily gone receiver. They could easily end up going receiver or just getting a receiver in the second round, which is really what I think they'll do. But yeah, put Johnny Newton on that D line and let him go to work. Finally, man, the Vikings, I'm going to say they get Jaden Daniels. The reason why I think the Vikings get Jaden Daniels here is, number one, he's the best prospect available on the board at this point. Number two, the Vikings have been needed a quarterback that can be there for more than just a year, or that they can give a contract to for more than just 1 year deals, like they have with Kirk. They need a guy that they can kind of sit and develop, and really be Justin Jefferson's quarterback for the long run, be Jordan Addison's quarterback for the long run, and let that whole offense grow together. And I think Jaden Daniels is the perfect guy to put in that offense, honestly. I mean, you have two explosive playmakers on each side that we just mentioned in Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson. You have a decent offensive line. You have T.J. Hawkinson in the middle there. Really, all you need is a young guy with some wheels to run the show, and I think that Jaden Daniels can do that. I think he'll bring a lot of electricity to Minnesota, and I think that's a perfect fit. So, boom. Jaden Daniels at 11. So he just got outside the top 10, which is not common for the mocks that I've seen. But it is what it is, man. So the Broncos are next. There's two Alabama corners. Both of them are up here. The Broncos are another interesting team. Because Russell Wilson, we don't know what's going to happen there. We don't know if he's going to get traded. We don't know if they're going to cut him. We don't know what they're going to do. I think it is an interesting situation for the Broncos to be in, because you do have a pretty good defense. You have some decent receivers. Maybe this is a spot for Keon Coleman, which I'm definitely thinking about. Maybe this is a spot for a quarterback, which I'm also thinking about. But if they do decide, I think they kind of wrote the ship on Russ. I think they kind of said, yeah, this is not the guy we're going to rock with, especially Sean Payton not being confident enough to play him, to play him that last game. I don't think, that was very smart of them in the long run. And I even think that if they tried to keep Russ, he would want out at this point. So I think it's only right that you do take a quarterback, and with a college coach backing him that just got hired into the NFL, Coach Harbaugh was back J.J. McCarthy saying he's the best quarterback in the class, which I don't agree with. He also just won a national championship. He also just played on an undefeated team in college. And he's also a little bit younger than Bo Nix, a little bit more athletic than Bo Nix, and I do think that he's maybe just going to be more accurate, going to be more able to operate his system than Bo Nix. We've seen Bo Nix kind of jump around and struggle a lot. Haven't seen that in McCarthy at all. So I think McCarthy to the Broncos makes the most sense here, even though that's kind of just, it's not really a sexy pick to me. I don't really like it. I'll be honest, I'm not the biggest JJ McCarthy fan in this class. Obviously nothing personal or anything like that, but just more of I don't necessarily see it. What I see in the other three quarterbacks at the top of the class, to me, there's just a significant drop off when I watch JJ McCarthy. So I guess we'll just have to see. I could be completely wrong. But yeah, I think McCarthy to the Broncos makes a lot of sense. And yeah, moving on to the Raiders, man, staying in the division. The Raiders did actually end up hiring Antonio Pierce, which I'm very, very glad about. It's no secret that they need a lot of defensive help. I mean, they have Josh Jacobs, they have Devontae Adams. It's looking like they're going to try to go after a quarterback in free agency, whether that be Kirk, whether that be Justin Fields, whether that be someone else, whether that be Russell Wilson on the trade market or in free agency, whatever ends up happening there. I just don't think that they're a team that's going to draft a quarterback, especially I don't think you're pulling the trigger on Bo Nix at 13. I just don't. Especially when the other three quarterback or the other, I guess, four quarterbacks selected before him, there's just an even bigger drop off when you get to Bo Nix. So, and he's an older guy. He's 25. I'm not big on the Bo Nix thing either. So I don't think that's the pick here. I think you more go on the side of the ball that they've needed to repair and been trying to repair for multiple years now. The side of the ball that Antonio Pierce loves. And I think you go Kool-Aid McKinstry. I love Terrion Arnold. I really, really do. I just think in terms of what the Raiders are going to want to do, they're going to want that more physical, man up, talk crap kind of corner, kind of beat the crap out of you at the line of scrimmage type of corner. And I think Kool-Aid McKinstry is more of that than Terrion Arnold is. I guess with that one, especially with them playing at the same school, it's kind of preference. To me, they're 1A, 1B. It's not really a 1 and 2 type of thing. But I think that fits the Raiders really well, especially when you really only have Nate Hobbs back there cleaning up for you at corner. So I think adding that across from him and kind of giving that corner that they've wanted in a while, like the corner that they tried to draft a few years ago in Damon Arnett, I think, you might actually get him and Kool-Aid McKinstry now. So, all right, the pick I've been waiting for because this is my own team. So this is it's a little bit of a weird position to be in, but honestly, it's kind of like the Giants situation. We already paid Derek Carr, so how I feel on that situation really has no effect. We're going to stick with Derek Carr. I've heard that DA is also going to stick around as head coach for another year, so that is what it is. Michael Thomas seems to be on his way out of the building finally after kind of talking crap on his way out. But I still feel really good about where we are at receiver, especially with what Rashid Shaheed has shown me. I don't feel really, too bad about that. I also really like A.T. Perry. So I'm not going to go receiver here. I think here we kind of just take the best edge available because Cameron Jordan's on his way out of here, and who knows how long. We traded Davenport to the Vikings last year. Things like that I think have led to us kind of being weak at the edge position. Last year I know we took Isaiah Foskey at defensive end. Sorry, I'm trying to plug my computer in, but there we go, man. Jeez. All right. But yeah, I think we've drafted a lot at edge, and now we're kind of getting to a point where we're weak there. We're not really strong as we used to be. Our defense is kind of starting to, come back to earth a little bit from being that man up and just go kick ass type of unit. We're not really that unit right now anymore, but I think Latu can get us back there. I think he's an exceptional edge rusher. I think him across from Cameron Jordan or Foskey or whoever you want to put on that other side is scary. I do think, he's going to be one of those guys that takes a while to pop off the screen, but I think once he does, it'll be like a huge pop. And hopefully it's for the Saints. That'd be really cool. I'd love to see it. But yeah, man, let's keep on going. 15, man. 15. We're halfway through this first round, or I guess almost halfway through this first round. I am going to go ahead and take a little break real quick. Just kind of grab some more coffee and stuff. It'll be a little cut for y'all, so y'all don't got to worry about anything, but I will be right back. All right, y'all, we back with that. All right, for the Colts, man, let's jump straight into it. Let's jump into the Colts. I'm gonna go over here too because I'm kind of tired of looking at this all screen. So just to give y'all an idea of kind of who's left on the board, let me just click around, and kind of show you. But I like Talise Fuaga a lot. I just don't know if he's a first round pick. It's weird because I feel as though I like Amarius Mims more than Talise Fuaga, but that's just a personal thing. That's just a personal opinion. And playing offensive line and like watching a lot of offensive line, I just see kind of more of an all around prospect from him in terms of Mims versus Fuaga. But to each their own, man. To each their own. I think the biggest need for the Colts here, though, is linebacker or corner. I like Terrion Arnold. I like Cooper DeJean a lot, too. I think Cooper DeJean is a slept-on prospect. But I think Terrion Arnold is probably the right pick and best available here for the Colts. When you really think about kind of where they are with corner, they had that weird year with Stephon Gilmore, and, they also had they've had the Isaiah Rodgers problems. They brought in Julius Brents last season. It just kind of seems like they're trying to get younger, while also kind of always having that key vet. But trying to get younger means you got to draft rookies, and you got to draft good rookies. And Terrion Arnold is a very, very good rookie. In my opinion, I think he can start almost right away. Yeah, man, I think that's a good pick. I think Terrion Arnold is a good fit for the Colts, and that's really all I have to say about that. Let's move on to the Seahawks. I could see basically anything except tackle and receiver because they've taken a lot of tackles recently in past drafts. They've also taken a couple of receivers, and they're already pretty stacked at receiver. I could see the argument for, Tyler Lockett is getting older and is probably looking at moving on soon. So you want to maybe think about that in round 3 or 4. But right now, I think the best pick for them, they have Tariq Woolen, they have Devon Witherspoon. They technically still have Jamal Adams. Kind of depends on what you think about him. But kind of a always area of need, especially now that things are kind of getting weird over there in Seattle. A position of need that they've been needed for a really long time is defensive line, because you never really see, at least since the Legion of Boom, I haven't seen a Seattle pass rush that really gets home and really just can shut down a game. So to me, I think I'm going to go Byron Murphy. Weird pick. Might be a little bit of a reach. A lot of people are probably going to be like, why'd you skip Chop Robinson or Jared Verse? I don't think they need edge as much. I think more of their need is kind of in the interior. They're not great at stopping the run, and I'm pretty sure like they have guys like Al Woods and just big bodies, but not anything of substance. And I think Byron Murphy out of Texas is a huge body, great power rusher, can clog up the run, can literally just clog up the entire middle of the field if you need him to. Can get home, is a smart player. I just think that to me makes more sense for Seattle right now and kind of gives them that piece on the D line that they need immediately, more than I think Chop Robinson or Jared Verse does. And especially since it usually does take a little while longer for edges to come along in the NFL, I think that helps your team more right away rather than a Band-Aid fix. So, looking at the Jags, man, the Jags are crazy. We need to do a Jags video solely with Garrett because they are an interesting team. Especially with the hopes that everyone had for them this year and what it seemed like their ceiling was, and them having Trevor Lawrence and bringing in Calvin Ridley, all these things that happened for them to not even make the playoffs was kind of a shock and not a good one. So definitely some stuff they need to figure out. But honestly, I like what I see from them on defense for the most part. I think if I was going to address something on defense, though, it'd be corner. And Cooper DeJean fits really, really, really well. He's a big physical corner. He can do the man stuff. He can do the zone stuff. There's honestly not a whole lot to dislike about Cooper DeJean. He comes from that tough Iowa, like kind of the Riley Moss mold of like the Jack Campbell mold of just like hard-nosed, tough football player. Just real football players. That's what I feel like Iowa prospects always are. They always are that hard-nosed, like Brian Cushing type that just wants to go out and hit something just for fun. But yeah, man. Now we get to move on to the Bengals, who had an even more interesting year. They could have used Terry and Arnold, 3 picks later, but that's not how the draft works. He's off the board, and you got to keep looking. You could make it big time LSU over there and go get Brian Thomas Jr., who's there, but that'd be a huge reach to me and is not really a need for them. I honestly think they'll probably bring back Tyler Boyd to be that safety blanket, but also be the number 2 in case they end up trading T. Higgins or he gets hurt or something like that. I think they're going to bring back Tyler Boyd, so I don't think he's out of the building yet. I know they took Charlie Jones in last year's draft as well, but I don't think receiver is a huge need. I think if you're going to go anywhere, J.C. Latham is probably the pick. Just because those tackle spots have been kind of all over the place. I know they brought in Lael Collins like a while ago. That didn't really end up panning out. He ended up being on the roster but not even playing. And just a bunch of weird stuff, man. So they've kind of tried to duct tape that tackle spot a couple of different times in a couple of back-to-back years in different ways. Obviously, the Jackson Carman pick didn't work out, like things like that. So I think if you just go get your tackle and stop having these problems with Burrow. I mean, Burrow cannot be banged up every year. It's ridiculous. So go get your tackle, keep your guy upright, and go to battle. I mean, that's really all I'd say for them. But I mean, all in all, I like the spot the Bengals are in. I don't think that they're necessarily a team that needs a whole lot. I just think, when you don't have your starting quarterback for most of the year, it's going to affect you. So yeah, moving on to the Rams, man. The Rams are a electric, exciting team, but also a very hard team to draft for because every spot seems to either be taken care of or absolutely in the dumpster. And there's no in between. Like, there's not really any spots that I look at on this roster and I'm like, oh, that's fine. it's okay. Like, I can get away with that. It's either terrible or really good. So here, I think if I'm looking just based off of fit, if I'm looking based off of what they need, I see linebacker as a huge need for them. Um, I think offensive line could be more of a help. I think they could use more skill positions as well. I think here is kind of it's just kind of preference in what you do. I mean, I don't think there's not really a whole lot of players that you can take that aren't going to help the Rams and where they're at right now. So I think I'm going to go Chop Robinson here. I like Chop Robinson a lot. I think he also just fits the Rams brand of football. Just fast, going to get to the quarterback, bendy, super just versatile edge rusher in general. I like him a little bit more than Jared Verse. He's also a little bit younger. So he's my pick for the Rams, man. And the Steelers, it just doesn't get any less hard. It doesn't get any less hard at all. But I think at this point you're out on Kenny Pickett, right? Because, that just hasn't worked out at all. You look at the receiver room, and I don't hate it. I think their receiver room is fine. The offensive line could definitely use some work, so I'm definitely, looking at Fuaga here. I think this could be a really good spot for Brian Thomas, though, because Brian Thomas reminds me a lot of a George Pickens. Not necessarily in terms of mentality, but just in terms of play style. Like, Brian Thomas is only different because he's more of a burner. He's got way more speed, but they're both kind of that big, like, oh, I don't care where you are, I'm still going to catch the ball on your head type of receiver. Like I said, I like Amarius Mims more personally than Fuaga, but that doesn't really have a ton of impact here. So I think if I'm looking at it, you're moving on from Kenny Pickett. You have two pretty good running backs. You have a decent O-line. You have defense all over the place. I guess they could take corner. I'm going to go ahead and take Nate Wiggins because I just thought about it. Patrick Peterson's not going to be there next season. Joey Porter Jr. is still coming along in his development, only being a second-year player next year. And then you have guys like Levi Wallace, decent players, but you need another dog over there, and I think that's what Nate Wiggins out of Clemson is. Again, just a really good ball skill corner. Can kind of play his receiver however he wants to, zone or man as well. But definitely, I see him more better in the man situations. Just based off of the tape that I've seen. Honestly, Nate Wiggins is a player I'd probably have to get into more to really be able to give my full opinion. But I think just in terms of fit and best player available, that's the best fit for them. Because you don't need edge over there in Pittsburgh right now. And in Miami, man, Miami is one of those teams. It's like, how did y'all not make it further? And I'm pretty sure I do know that reason. I'm not a Tua hater, but Tua's kind of shown us that he's not necessarily up to the par in which he's not an elite quarterback necessarily. Outside of his receivers, like if you look at Tua's numbers before Tyreek and everybody came, it was a lot different. So that's all I'm saying. I'm not trying to get in a big rant about that though, necessarily. For them, I could see either I could see tackle or edge working out for them here. I don't think they go receiver. Maybe a number 3, but like you're not finding a number 3 until rounds 3 or 4, so you don't need to worry about that right now. I know you got a couple more years on Armstead. I'm going to go ahead and go Tylese Fuaga here. Not a sexy pick at all. You wait till 21 just to pick, another guy. But I mean, you have all the skill positions. You don't need skill positions. You have two good corners. You have good safeties. Um, the defensive line could use some better, some more upgrades. But honestly, I feel pretty confident. At edge, you have Jalen Phillips. Uh, Maybe you go defensive tackle or edge here, but I honestly think offensive tackle helping Tua stay up for longer, maybe even giving him a couple of extra seconds or giving him that one extra look can do a lot for him. So giving Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle more time to get down the field, I think that just helps their offense in general. So Tylese Fuaga is the pick for the Dolphins at 21 here. All right, man, we're on to the final 10. The Eagles, great. I'm not exactly excited to pick for the Eagles here because they are such a hard team to pick for because they are consistently stacked everywhere.